My mother was the Queen for a very long time. And although you kind of know that this might happen, you don't really think about it very much. Not least of all because the monarchy is about continuity.
Royal blood does not guarantee peace. When it comes to matters of fortune, even family ties can feel like shackles.
Throughout her life, Her Majesty the Queen, my beloved mother, was an inspiration, an example to me and to all my family. And we owe her the most heartfelt debt any family could owe to their mother.
And true intentions are revealed. In Buckingham Palace, Queen Camilla had made a shocking move to disrupt centuries of royal tradition. She wants her daughter to have a share of King Charles's private fortune, but the king's sister, Anne, and the ever-graceful Catherine stand firmly in the way. So do Camilla's children stand a chance to inherit anything? And how far will Camilla go for her daughter's inheritance? Join us as we unveil how Camilla fights for her daughter's inheritance. The royal inheritance. Inheritance can be a tricky subject, particularly because it involves all the emotions that come with a death in the family, dealing with inheritance tax and splitting what is left among multiple family members if the dearly departed's will is unclear. But as complicated as they are for regular people, inheritance among the British royal family can be mysterious due to monarchs' wills being sealed for decades after their death. When Queen Elizabeth II passed, her eldest son, the now King Charles III, inherited more than just the crown. The exact value of how much Charles inherited is unclear, but at least one of the assets he was given is the Queen's private estate, the Duchy of Lancaster, which is valued at more than 650 million euros. But the king has reportedly stirred up some resentment among his younger siblings, the Duke of York, the Princess Royal, and the Duke of Edinburgh over their late mother's inheritance. Prince Andrew, in particular, is said to be in despair that Charles has not shared out the late Queen's inheritance. As a non-working royal, he does not receive handouts from the sovereign grant to cover costs, unlike Princess Anne and Prince Edward. On an autumn afternoon at Highgrove, King Charles was, as usual, buried in paperwork that no one outside the inner circle ever sees. But Camilla was there, after all. She's part of the inner circle, too. It was obvious that even though she maintained her usual poise, there was something else. Rumors have been flying around that the Queen Consort has been mulling over Charles's personal estate, not the kind of assets that are tied to the crown. These are Charles's individual properties, but they still carry the weight of centuries. We're talking about art collections, properties tucked away in the countryside, and jewels passed down through generations. And then, in a moment that most likely caught Charles off guard, and would have shocked anyone who was there too, Camilla floated an idea, a very unexpected idea. Not only was it something personal, but it was also directed at her own offspring. Her idea was fairly simple, at least on paper. She wanted the king to redirect a portion of his inheritance toward her own daughter, Laura Lopes, instead of letting it follow the traditional route to William. She knew that once William secured the estates, they would automatically flow to his wife, Catherine, the Princess of Wales. Laura, you see, has always been Camilla's anchor, the one who stayed out of the spotlight while her mother navigated the brutal early days of scandal and scrutiny. Laura's life is quieter, more grounded with her art dealings and family in the Cotswolds. But in Camilla's eyes, she's extremely loyal. Why not reward that loyalty with something tangible? Sounds reasonable, right? But a bequest that skips the rigid lines of succession just to honor the blended family that Charles and Camilla have built over decades is not something so simple. A thought like that seems like what makes sense in a modern monarchy, or at least that's how Camilla painted it. She made it look like a gesture of unity, but in reality, it was most likely a way to weave her side of the family deeper into royalty, although without upending the throne itself. Inside the palace, Charles listened to Camilla as he always does. He knows Catherine is not just his daughter-in-law. She's basically the linchpin of the future. Everyone knows Kate is the one carrying the weight of public adoration and the subtle art of keeping the institution afloat. If Charles handed over assets meant for her line to someone else, it would definitely create a ripple that would touch William, the grandchildren. In fact, the very idea of continuity that the royals cling to would be grossly affected. Camilla's suggestion hung in the air. It was not addressed, but it was not forgotten either. It was just there. Of course, there was no way that word of this exchange would stay contained in that sunlit dining room. If the walls have ears, Windsor Castle walls have hundreds of invisible ears. It didn't take too long for word to spread, and by evening it eventually got to Princess Anne, the no-nonsense powerhouse who's been Charles's sounding board since they were kids dodging protocol in the stables. Naturally, Charles would always fall back on his backbone. Princess Anne. When he called her, he cut straight to the point, asking Anne what she thought of the suggestion. He laid out Camilla's plea, the emotional pull, the practical pitfalls. Anyone familiar with Anne would know that the queen of the cut-through doesn't sugarcoat her words. Sources familiar with her style say she launches into a rapid-fire assessment, ticking off points like a military debrief. She first examined the legal angle. Charles's will, drawn up in the Clarence house years ago, distributes personal assets to the direct heirs, with Catherine serving as the steward for the Wales branch. Altering that invites audits and questions from Parliament, even in an era when the royals' finances are under scrutiny. Remember the duchy controversies? Anne brings them up, reminding Charles how every pound is politicized. Then the familial. Laura's a gem, no doubt, but elevating her over Catherine risks alienating William, who's already chafing under the crown's expectations. It's not all caution. Anne concedes Camilla's intent is pure, a bid for fairness in a lopsided institution. But consent in royal terms means alignment. She would not agree to the subtle suggestion, especially not after seeing how Camilla weaves her way into the palace. Speaking of which, do Camilla's children really stand a chance to inherit anything? Camilla's children and royal status. Camilla's children are not entitled to get any royal titles even though their mother is now the queen consort, following the passing of Queen Elizabeth at the ripe age of 96. The former Duchess of Cornwall has two grown children, Tom Parker Bowles and Laura Lopes, from her first marriage to her ex-husband, Andrew Parker Bowles. Joe Little, the managing editor of Majesty magazine, was interviewed by Page on the issue of inheritance and whether Camilla's children stood a chance of getting royal titles, being the stepchildren of the king. He was pretty straightforward with his answer, saying Tom and Laura will remain precisely as they are. Their names won't change merely because of their mother's new title. When he was asked if the stepchildren will automatically get security from Scotland Yard royal protection officers who look after senior members of the family, Joe simply said that if they haven't needed security up until now, they won't get it when the reign changes unless it's needed. But as a matter of course, they will not get security. The said offspring themselves seem to be carrying on with their own lives, irrespective of what their mother is doing for them behind the scenes. Camilla's son, Tom, who is now 47, has something of a public persona, being a food writer and critic. His sister, Laura, on the other hand, a former art curator, is not in the public eye as much as her older brother. According to Joe, they're not really after royal titles. They are both relatively low-key, considering their connections, and that's how they like it. They value their privacy. They normally would be very much in the background. However, the fact that the siblings are both low-key doesn't mean they're entirely holed up. They were both at Windsor Castle, along with their own children, in June 2022, to watch their mother be installed as a royal lady of the Order of the Garter, an appointment made by her late mother-in-law, Queen Elizabeth. They also attended the Platinum Jubilee celebrations later that summer in London. Aside from that, Tom and Laura also attended their mother's coronation, and inevitably, there was huge media scrutiny returning to them at that point. From then, a lot of things changed, and one of the downsides was that the newspapers took more interest in them. So is there a way for them to get any titles? Well, the only time Tom and Laura would be given any official title or distinction is if they are nominated for one due to good works. And so far, there hasn't been any such nomination or recognition. The chances of getting titles are very slim. Even though neither of them stand any legal chance of becoming royals, it doesn't mean they're not on good terms with the actual royals. Since Camilla and Charles wed in April 2005, there has long been a close friendship between Charles and his stepchildren, and even step-grandchildren. Joe Little believes there is definitely a bond there. Tom has 2 children, Lola and Freddie, with his former wife Sarah Baez. He has the somewhat bizarre honor of having King Charles as both his stepfather and godfather. Meanwhile, 44-year-old Laura, whom Camilla's fighting for, is married to accountant Harry Lopes. Just as the relationship with the king is smooth, it's the same with both Prince William and Prince Harry. They were guests at her wedding. At this point, it's not wrong to say Tom and Laura have become friends with the brothers. And she also attended both of their weddings. In fact, Laura's daughter, Eliza, was a bridesmaid for Kate, Princess of Wales, at her and William's wedding in 2011 when the girl was just 4. She was seen being held up by then Prince Charles on the balcony at Buckingham Palace. Even though the relationship between Camilla's children and King Charles's offspring is smooth with not even the slightest trace of hostility, it still doesn't give the stepchildren any chance to inherit titles or royal properties. There's already a recognized line waiting for that. So who are the people standing in line to inherit titles and royal properties? The recognized line of succession. When King Charles, the former Prince of Wales and now King of Britain, married Lady Diana Spencer, who became the Princess of Wales, they produced 2 sons, William and Harry. They later separated, and only a year later, the princess was killed in a car crash in Paris. He then married Camilla Parker Bowles, who he'd been in love with the whole time. When Charles became king, she became Queen Consort, as per the wishes of the late Queen. Following the coronation, she is now known as Queen Camilla. Talking about the line of succession, the first in line is obviously the first son of Charles, Prince William. He was only 15 years old when his mother died. The prince was introduced to official duties at a relatively early age. When he turned 21, he was appointed a Counselor of State, standing in for the late Queen on official occasions. He and his wife had their first child, George, their second child, Charlotte, and their third child, Louis. William inherited the Duchy of Cornwall estate from his father, and now he is the Prince of Wales. Catherine, his wife, is now the Princess of Wales. As heir to the throne, his primary duties are to support the king in his royal commitments. Although Harry is the second prince, he's not the second in line. William's first son, Prince George, takes that spot, and after him is his sister, Princess Charlotte of Wales. Their little brother, Louis Arthur Charles, is next. So where does Harry stand? Just like his brother, he was a Counselor of State when he turned 21 and stood in for the late Queen on official duties. He's also the Duke of Sussex. He married Meghan Markle, an American actress, on May 19, 2018. And in January 2020, for some reason, the royal couple said they would step back as senior royals and divide their time between the UK and North America. They said they intended to work to become financially independent. Just over a year later, Buckingham Palace confirmed that the couple would not be returning to royal duties and would relinquish their honorary military appointments and royal patronages. So, yeah, Harry is no longer in line for the throne. The same can't be said for his children, though. His first son gained the right to be called a prince when King Charles ascended the throne. Harry and Meghan don't want to decide for their children. It's their choice if they wish to use their titles when they are older or not. Archie's younger sister comes after him. Then there's Prince Andrew, Queen Elizabeth's other son. He was given the title, the Duke of York, on his marriage to Sarah Ferguson, who became Duchess of York in 1986. They had 2 daughters, but their marriage was over after a decade. Prince Andrew stepped away from royal duties in 2019 after an interview with the BBC about his relationship with U.S. financier Jeffrey Epstein, who killed himself while awaiting trial on sex trafficking and conspiracy charges. In February 2022, the Duke agreed to pay an undisclosed sum to settle a civil sexual assault case brought against him in the U.S. by one of Epstein's victims. However, he made no admission of liability and had repeatedly denied the allegations. Since Andrew's wife is no longer with him, the new Duchess of York is Princess Beatrice, the elder daughter of Prince Andrew and Sarah. And then there's Princess Beatrice's baby girl, Sienna Elizabeth, who is 10th in line to the throne. To be honest, the line of succession is simply too long. It would be a gross mistake if Camilla's suggestion is even taken into consideration. How is the king supposed to skip all those who have legitimate claim and bestow his estate? Laura Lopes, simply because she's his stepdaughter. The king is a custodian of royal tradition, and when he was caught in the dilemma, he simply turned to another custodian, his sister Anne. In case anyone is wondering, why Charles turned to Anne instead of making a direct decision? The Princess Royal is even more rooted in tradition than her brother. What exactly does Anne do, and how has she helped the king over the years? Charles and Anne, guardians of tradition. Princess Anne isn't interested in being a glamorous clothes horse or in hanging out in places where the paparazzi go. Instead, she emphasizes the hard work of being a member of the royal family, being patron of countless organizations, representing the royals at openings, galas, among others. Known as the backbone of the royal family, Anne's work ethic can't be denied. As proof of her hard work, she carried out 474 engagements last year alone. Princess Anne has often let some more of her personality shine through in her work compared to her more stoic and tight-lipped mother. In the line of succession to the throne, she stands as number 16th, but she's not really bothered about that. The princess excels as a brilliant networker who is unafraid to make her feelings public. In 2019, she trended worldwide on Twitter after she appeared to bicker with the Queen over greeting President Donald Trump. Anne has so many achievements that would leave rivals gasping. She boasts a Nobel Peace Prize nomination and has a stint in the Olympics, not to mention how she even batted off a kidnapping attempt. In reality, strict rules and traditions generally dictate behavior in the world of royalty, and that makes genuine feelings hard to express. But that is not the case for Princess Anne and King Charles. They have a close and unique bond that remains hidden within the palace walls. Even though their connection is not flashy or dramatic, it is firm and based on mutual respect and understanding. Princess Anne and King Charles had the typical royal upbringing. Born to Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip, they grew up surrounded by responsibilities and public scrutiny. Before they became known as members of the royal family, they were simply Charles and Anne, siblings who grew up together in Buckingham Palace. With only a 2-year age gap, they were very close to each other from the very beginning, spending a lot of time together when they were young. They played, learned, and dealt with the pressure that comes with being born to a monarch. When parents are too busy, the children usually take the brunt of it. But in their case, since their parents were busy with royal duties, Charles and Anne leaned on each other for support and friendship. As they grew, it became evident that Charles, the oldest sibling, was reserved, contemplative, and somewhat hesitant. Anne, on the other hand, was a completely opposite version, lively, daring, and courageous. Despite their contrasting personalities, they complemented each other well, and perhaps that's why they are so close. Anne encouraged Charles to be more outgoing, while Charles provided a sense of stability for Anne. Rather than driving them apart, their differences strengthened their bond. Unlike many siblings who drift apart as they get older, Charles and Anne remained close, and their connection became even stronger as they age. They stood by each other through all the ups and downs of life. When Charles went off to boarding school, Anne felt a deep longing, and when Anne excelled in equestrian sports and became a top athlete, Charles rooted for her enthusiastically. They never tried to outdo each other. They went their own ways and supported each other's decisions. As they settled into their royal duties, they frequently worked together, standing by each other at royal functions, formal visits, and even in private. Anne was consistently reliable. She understood the importance of royal responsibilities and fulfilled them with poise and resilience. Charles relied on her during stressful moments. She didn't have to say a lot. Simply being present was enough. One thing worth noting is that Princess Anne has never spoken negatively about her brother, not even in difficult times. From behind closed doors and in public, she has always supported and respected him. And King Charles trusts her, because why not? He knows she is truthful, devoted, and resilient. He feels at ease when she is around, and that's why he didn't hesitate to call her when Camilla made her suggestion. As the new king, Charles needed someone he could rely on completely, and Anne filled that role. She did not try to be the center of attention. She did not desire fame. She only wanted to do her job well and serve her country. Her modesty and strong loyalty earned her a place as one of Charles's most trusted companions. While others left, Anne remained, always prioritizing duty. Princess Anne was far from popular with some for many years. She is her father's daughter and is no-nonsense, blunt, and doesn't pander to the press. She chose to save the children, and today she is a hugely respected royal. Princess Anne is also quite remote, says what she thinks, is very blunt and haughty, and that's just the way the British like their royals. They've already been conditioned and raised to look up to them as supreme beings, so they like it when the royals act the part. But at the same time, they want to think royals have empathy. So there are lots of photo ops for Anne with her various charities to exude compassion to the distressed and in royal speak, that is, working her butt off. Today she is recognized for her dedication, hard work, loyalty, and uncomplicated approach to her engagements. It doesn't matter where she is in the line of succession. She is a working royal who can be depended upon. Having her around was bought to help Charles make up his mind about Camilla's proposal. He would not break the royal tradition of succession simply because he was conflicted between his role as king and his duties as a husband. He didn't make his decision in a rush, after all. Charles is known to be someone who takes his time in making important decisions. His properties will pass as they ought to his son and heir, William, and by extension, to Catherine, the future queen consort. However, it should be noted that Catherine, though not yet queen, already has an inheritance she got from Queen Elizabeth II. Her inheritance caused quite a stir. What did she get from Queen Elizabeth? Catherine's inheritance. At first, it was mere speculation. Then it became fact. The moment it was confirmed that Kate Middleton received an inheritance from Queen Elizabeth II after her passing, a huge commotion arose on the online space. As mentioned earlier, initially, after the passing of Queen Elizabeth, it was her son, now King Charles III, who received the majority of her inheritance. A personal estate estimated at about 650 million euros. Meanwhile, the monarch's inheritance includes, in addition to the jewelry, the Sandringham and Balmoral castles, artworks, a mare, and a large part of her personal wardrobe. These are pieces of incalculable value, both historical and economic. But what about her personal jewelry? They had yet to determine the fate of those. Ordinarily, the women of the royal family were the main recipients of this part of Elizabeth's inheritance, and without much surprise, the pieces are currently at the disposal of both the Queen Consort and Kate Middleton. The majority of the jewelry that Elizabeth wore at official events during her reign was part of the crown's heritage and has been passed down from generation to generation. This is why both Queen Camilla and Kate Middleton can now use them. However, in addition to the jewelry belonging to the crown, the monarch also had a private collection that was no less valuable. It was a personal jewelry box composed of about 200 pieces that she could freely distribute among her family members. This exclusive collection is simply mind-blowing. It included 98 brooches, 34 pairs of earrings, 14 watches, 46 necklaces, 15 rings, and 5 pendants, with an estimated value of several hundred million euros. Of course, being the Queen Consort, Camilla was the first to have access to Elizabeth's personal jewelry, and no one is surprised that she was able to select the most valuable pieces. Over time, it has become evident that among her favorites are those belonging to the Greville legacy. Her inheritance includes more than a dozen tiaras with diamonds and emeralds, as well as diamond, ruby, and emerald necklaces, earrings, and Devant corsage brooches. Among the pieces Camilla has worn the most are the Greville necklace and the Greville tiara. But don't forget about Kate. After Camilla did her thing, Kate Middleton also received some of the most significant pieces from the late Queen's personal jewelry box. In total, Kate Middleton would have inherited 10 pieces, whose value is estimated at 81 million euros, making her the main beneficiary. Among the pieces, the Hyderabad necklace stands out, considered the most expensive jewel. This piece, one of the monarch's favorites, was a wedding gift in 1947 from the Nizam of Hyderabad. The necklace that now belongs to Kate Middleton was created by the Cartier firm in 1935 and is adorned with more than 50 large diamonds arranged in various floral designs. But that's not all. Another valuable piece that Kate Middleton has inherited is the George V festoon necklace. The Princess of Wales wore it in the official photographs taken after the coronation of Charles III. This piece is made up of 3 strands of diamonds and is estimated to be worth 2.8 million euros. Additionally, among the other notable jewels are leaf-shaped earrings and a matching brooch, valued at about 45,000 euros. So even without talking about the inheritance that'll flow from King Charles, Catherine has already stamped her place in the royal family. She stands next in line to Camilla, and regardless of what Camilla does, that'll not change. Do you think Camilla's children will be nominated for royal titles? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.